Hello, and welcome to Set 3's presentation on cultural anthropology. Cultural anthropology is the study of culture, which examines the impact of global forces on local realities, with a primary focus on how the local realities are included in the global forces. Cultural anthropologists study culture, generally through the use of fieldwork in which they immerse themselves in the socio-cultural environment of the group being observed. They not only live and interact within this community, but also study and analyze the impact of global forces on local realities. Cultural anthropologists tend to focus on the local culture and how these local realities are embedded within the global context. The concept of friction, introduced by Singh, is her way of describing the unexpected and unstable parts of global interactions. Friction can better be explained as the interaction of differences. The friction created from these differences will cause new cultures to be produced. Universals, Singh tells us, are knowledge that moves, mobile and mobilizing, across localities and cultures. Universals are local knowledge, and in order to understand them, one must also understand the historical and cultural assumptions that travel with them. Cultural anthropology looks at the interaction of universals and friction in order to understand the impact of universals on the local culture within the global context. The new emergent local cultures being changed by universals are the point of focus for cultural anthropologists. Universals are those factors that allow for cultures to take part on the global context, and they are characterized for their hybrid, transient, dynamic, and constantly evolving nature. Friction arises from clashes of cultures or interactions. They are characterized by their awkward, unequal, unstable, and creative nature. There are a plethora of resources one can investigate to gain further insights into the cultural anthropological perspective on education. There are two important groupings included in the presentation, those of a historical anthropological side and those of present organizations, networks, and publications reflecting the application of anthropology to studies about education. There are also several important organizations, such as UNESCO, the American Anthropological Association, the Higher Education Subject Network for Sociology, Anthropology, and Politics, the Council on Anthropology and Education, the Humanities and Social Sciences Online Network, and University of Illinois Education and Sociology Library. Please feel free to click on the hyperlinks to access specific websites with detailed information about each. Note, Questia.com will require you to include an email address to access the readings of Durkheim, Radcliffe, Brown, and Levi-Strauss. The historical framework of anthropology traces its roots to French thinker Émile Durkheim, who is regarded as the father of sociology. He sought to understand the relationship between individuals, groups, and society, and looked at the role of education from a functionalist standpoint. Following in his work, Radcliffe, Brown, and Malinowski sought to analyze conceptions of culture, society, and research methodology made contributions to broaden the scope of anthropological practice. They were among the first anthropologists to become participant observers in their work. Malinowski furthered the functionalist and Radcliffe Brown the structural functionalist perspectives of culture and the various components of society. Levi-Strauss made substantial contributions in the field of cultural anthropology, adding to the canon of work, as well as developing ethnographic research methodology to add to the depth and breadth of the field. Three other significant figures in cultural anthropology are Franz Boas, Margaret Mead, and Clifford Geertz. Boas was a professor of cultural anthropology at Columbia and is regarded as a major figure in the field and for solidifying anthropology in the United States. He studied Northwest coastal indigenous populations, published several books and essays, and worked as a curator at the Museum of Natural History in New York. One of his many students was Margaret Mead, who made great contributions to the field of feminist anthropology and women's studies, and published several works on South Asian female rites of passage and childbirth rituals. Geertz served as professor of cultural anthropology at Princeton and published several works on symbols and culture in South Asia and Islam in North Africa. Presently, there are new generations of cultural anthropologists emerging across the globe, which are possibly due to the work of those above mentioned. With the acceleration of the integrative process of globalization, there remains a great deal of work to be done studying culture, behavior, socialization, and education, and cultural anthropology can provide valuable insights. Singh speaks about the relationship between local culture and global interactions. Singh claims that global connections are the result of history that extends far back in time. Further, Singh explains that globalization impacts that culture. Singh goes on to explain that it has become increasingly clear that all human cultures are shaped and transformed in long histories of regional to global networks of power, trade, and meaning. In looking at cultural anthropology and its relationship to the universal saying, Singh says, universal claims do not actually make everything everywhere the same. Cultural anthropology has skepticism towards the universal, since that view comes from a cultural relativism standpoint. Singh's perspective is that, whether it is seen as an underlying or transcending cultural difference, the mission of the universal is to form bridges, roads, and channels of circulation. Singh's article shows the linkage from villagers to global connections, illustrating the importance of both roles. Singh makes the point that we cannot answer questions of the local without understanding global connections, showing that many local travesties have occurred because of global desires. Both impact and help fuel one another. Hanners makes the point that a culture need not be homogeneous or even particularly coherent. Instead of assuming far-reaching cultural sharing or a replication of uniformity, we should take a distributed view of cultures as systems of meaning. Furthermore, one can see that diversity of experiences and interests is a differentiation of perspectives, about perspectives, as well as differences of opinions about the members of a society. These ideas and differences in values can be collectivized into subcultures so that cultural sharing recurs at a lower level of organization. Hanners asserts that pre-colonial cultures turn into colonial cultures and colonial cultures into post-colonial cultures. The entire process must be viewed in historical terms, where the present is also part of history. Hanners states that education is cultural process, an organized way of giving individuals cultural shape. At the same time, in much of the Third World, the growth of formal education is a facet of its penetration by the world system. Hanners believes anthropologists should focus more attention on education in Third World countries to understand the social organization of culture. After looking at the implications of cultural anthropology in relationship to the education, it became apparent that cultural anthropology only focused on the impact of local realities on global forces, failing to take into account the large picture of both global and local interactions. Anderson Levitt would agree with this idea when they state, anthropologists must recognize the importance of insights from the world culture theory. For Anderson Levitt, the reliance on looking at interactions between both local and global forces is significant to one's view of education, therefore criticizing the strict view of simply looking at the local focus. Singh also criticizes the strict use of cultural anthropology through the presentation of the idea that there is a need to study global interactions, not just single cultural aspects. Singh suggests that one cannot just study the local, but there is a need to connect and become universal in one's understanding of culture. Hanners would also criticize cultural anthropology in relationship to the need to look at culture as a whole. Hanners would also agree that one cannot simply define individuals and culture by the historical background. People are distinct, and each person has been influenced on a wider level, not simply by local values and local socialization. Hanners sums it up when stating, we must be aware that openness to foreign cultural influences need not involve only an impoverishment of local and national culture. As a perspective, cultural anthropology tries to look at the bigger picture, specifically the connection between global and local. However, by itself, it doesn't actually portray that picture in a way that displays the connectedness. In a larger, holistic view, world culture theory also plays a vital role in cultural understanding. Because the connection between global and local is unique to every locale, it is imperative to view each piece individually before judging the interaction on a larger scale. Cultural anthropology is useful because it evolves and adapts to different and new ideas about culture. In that sense, cultural anthropology can be seen as an active perspective, connecting global to local, local to global, in a multitude of perspectives.